Hey, good morning, friends. Today, my friends, is Wednesday, June the 18th, 2025, and the time now is 7:36 a.m. So, friends, I want to talk briefly about Chad, the African nation of Chad, and I want to talk specifically about recent development, and this is basically dated around the 5th of June to the 8th of June. And this pertains to the fact that in retaliation to the Trump travel ban, the government of Chad, as instructed by the president of Chad, is suspending all visa issuance to U.S. citizens. And Chad is basically pointing to the fact that it has to be reciprocal. It is saying if the United States is going to suspend travel from Chad, that Chad is going to do the same thing. So, friends, earlier this month, June 2025, the Trump travel ban went into effect for 12 countries. But what is interesting is that of those 12 countries, 7 of them are in Africa alone. And once again, Chad was one of those countries. Now, if you move forward, just Monday, June 16, another list went into effect. About 36 countries will see the travel ban going into effect for these countries. And it is interesting that of these 36 countries, 25 are in Africa alone. Therefore, as I've said earlier this year, in reference to the Trump travel ban, the Trump travel ban is actually anti-black or anti-African because it seems as if the ban is going hard. It is going specifically at African countries. Yes, we are talking in this case about countries of color, countries in the global south. But Trump seems to be hitting hard at Africa. Now, friends, if you're watching this video or if you're new to this channel, The Echoing Voice, for the first time, I want you to know that every significant, every prominent international institution in the world does have at least one playlist on this channel. However, friends, every country in the world has at least two playlists on this channel. One is named the country's name and the other domestic the country's name. So friends, this is how it is set up. The country's name playlist will feature videos, talks, programs, or ideas that specifically focus on the country's position in its region and the country's interaction with other countries and institutions in its region and around the world. In this case, we are talking about Chad. Therefore, the country's name playlist Chad will feature videos, talks, programs, or ideas that focus on Chad's interaction with African countries and institutions and countries around the world. And in this case, we are talking about Chad's retaliation to the United States, Donald Trump's travel ban. The Chadians are being reciprocal, saying that if Donald Trump is going to restrict travel from Chad, that Chad is also going to do the same, restrict travel or ban travel from the United States. However, friends, the domestic the country's name playlist will feature videos, talks, programs, or ideas that focus specifically on the domestic situation within the country. Whether we are talking about economics, infrastructure, trade, agriculture, food security, educational academics, youth employment, and so on and so on and so on. In this case, we are talking about Chad. Therefore, the domestic Chad playlist will feature videos, talks, programs, or ideas that focus on youth employment or youth unemployment, academics and education, finance, jobs, infrastructure, and every other things that pertains to a domestic situation within any country in the world. Now, friends, I do apologize for deviating. However, I just want you to know how this channel is set up because this video right here is the first video of the playlist on Chad, the first ever video of the nation of Chad. Now, friends, let's return to the main topic of discussion. So while many African countries are afraid to speak or to retaliate against the United States and Donald Trump, Chad is one such country that is retaliating against the United States and Donald Trump, reciprocating what the United States and Donald Trump has started. Now, friends, we have to acknowledge the fact that what Chad is doing, it seems much more to be symbolic because many Americans are not traveling to Chad. Yes, if we look at the world's tourism industry, we can say that Chad or African countries, because of the lack of infrastructure and because of the hatred or the stereotype against Africans and African countries, that Chad, like many African countries, is not a prominent tourist destination in the world and for Americans. However, the fact that Chad is retaliating against Donald Trump and the United States travel ban, it is to me much more symbolic. Now, what Chad is saying here is Donald Trump is not only targeting Africans and Chad, which in this case it is racist, we have to be honest about it, but also, friends, Donald Trump is impacting, he is degrading the economy of African countries, and in this case, Chad. Now, friends, Chad, like many African countries, or all of the African countries, and also the most significant part of the world today, their economies are based specifically on the money sent home by their expats, their diaspora abroad. Okay, the money that they send home to these countries to take care of their friends and families, their loved ones at home. So that money circulates throughout the countries, and in this case, in Chad, and it helped boost their economies or Chad's economy. Therefore, by Donald Trump restricting or banning travel, okay, from Chad and other countries, Donald Trump is negatively impacting these countries' economies and so on, and Chad's economy. But, friends, if we are to look at what Donald Trump is doing, I believe as much as it is racist, it is also a geopolitical play, a geopolitical strategy. Now, if we can backtrack a little bit, when the war in Ukraine started, the West actually thought it was business as usual. The West thought that Africa was going to cave. The West wanted the war in Ukraine because they thought that they could defeat Russia. When the war started, the propaganda apparatus went into full effect. And the West was basically calling Africans or African names and putting pressure for Africans and Africa to decouple from Russia. Even though much of African grains come from Russia, the West wanted Africa to detach, basically starve your people so that we, the West, can defeat Russia. And Africa refused. In fact, much of Africa refused to condemn Russia. And even those countries that criticized Russia diplomatically and not harshly as many around the world, countries that took the West in line, did. So in that case, just the reluctance of Africa to engage in the side or on the side of the West alone had Russia winning the war, basically lost the war and the effort against Russia for the West. I think perhaps that's why Trump has been attacking African countries and countries in the global south. And if we look at the countries that Trump has been going against or going on, pouncing on, these are economically the weakest countries in the world. And they are also countries that are destabilized in various ways. Just in recent time, and in this case, we are talking about Monday, June the 16th, 2025, which in Sierra Leone and in Africa is the Day of the African Child. Trump's travel ban, the latest, went into effect, of which 36 countries will see travel bans. And of that 36 countries, 25 are in Africa. It is very interesting, friends, that on a day that celebrates African children, the Day of the African Child, June 16, Donald Trump's latest travel ban went into effect, of which 36 countries are experiencing or will be experiencing travel ban. Of that 36 countries, as I've said earlier, 25 are in Africa alone. Now, what Donald Trump and the Trump administration is saying is that the reason that these 36 countries are experiencing or will be experiencing travel ban is because of security reason for the United States. They are arguing that these countries are not doing efficient job, or they are not doing their job in terms of vetting their population, and that terrorism is an issue in these countries for the United States. Trump is saying that, or his administration is saying that, citizens of these countries are migrating, okay, they are traveling to the United States, and that they are overstaying their visas. These are among some of the argument that the Trump administration is putting forth. However, friends, the Trump administration is saying that in order for a country on this list, the travel ban list, to receive an exception or a lesser restriction, the country must accept the deportees from the United States. Basically, we are saying that the United States is in the process, okay, under Donald Trump, of deporting people from the United States. And it is said that legals and illegals, even citizens, are being deported. For Donald Trump, he is deporting people all over the world. In this case, a person could be Chinese or Mexican, or a person could also be an Afghanistan person. Donald Trump is deporting that person to, let's say, Chad. Therefore, friends, what Donald Trump is saying is that in order for Chad to receive exception or less restriction, Chad, like the other countries, okay, the 36 countries on this travel ban list, must accept people that the United States is deporting from the United States. It doesn't matter whether these people are from Chad or not. So if you look at it, as much as the Trump administration is arguing that travel ban is a security reason travel ban, it is not. What is happening here is a geopolitical play. Donald Trump is bullying African countries and other countries around the world in the global south, bullying them and force them to further subjugate themselves to become victims of America's foolishness, of Donald Trump's bullshit. And Chad, in this case, is one country that is refusing to partake in the nonsense. And I hope that African countries, all of them, not only refuse, but they have to make it bold to the President of the United States and to the United States that they are not going to take nonsense. And African countries have been issuing statements of condemnation of Donald Trump, even though others on the African continent, countries, are providing fine-tuned messages, diplomatic messages, to basically not piss off Donald Trump and the United States. So Donald Trump is arguing that the travel ban is for security reasons. So then, a country can have terrorist issues. If that country decide to accept the deportees from the United States, no matter if they are from this country or not, does it then means that the security threat of these countries to the United States automatically dissipate? So it is interesting. Once again, what this is showing is that Trump's travel ban is not a security issue. It is a geopolitical play. Perhaps what Donald Trump is doing is to try to tweak these countries, threaten them, weaken them to the point where when the United States get into another conflict, whether it gets in a direct confrontation with Russia, or the current state of affairs in the Middle East, Israel against Iran, Israel being backed by the United States, that these countries will do exactly what the United States say. They will not take side of Iran, or they will not criticize Israel or the United States. Perhaps that's what Donald Trump is doing. But then this could backfire then, because what Donald Trump is doing, he is pushing Africans away. And Africans are now turning to Russia and China, or they have been for a while now turning to Russia and China. However, friends, one thing that I want to add in order to show that the Trump travel ban, which went into effect on Monday, is a geopolitical play, is that just yesterday or day before yesterday, I came across an article that basically is saying that Ghana is recalling its embassy from Tehran, Iran. Perhaps the reason for that is because of the Trump travel ban, because Ghana is one of those countries on that travel ban. And what is interesting is that even Liberia, my country, Liberia, is on the travel ban. Now, in Liberia for decades, we've prided ourselves as little America, as American or America's little brother or little sister or stepchild or whatever. But what Donald Trump continued to prove since he came to power, attacking Liberia, is that America doesn't see Liberia or any African countries as friends. Therefore, African countries might want to recalculate their geopolitical effort and begin to pay attention to countries that will honor their relationship. Because what the United States is saying is that you Africans, you are all puppets, you are all pawns. I don't give a damn about you. But once again, friends, it is very interesting that given the current situation between Israel and Iran, which Israel attacked first, Israel strike sneak attack on Iran, attacking nuclear facilities. And it is said that some of these facilities are badly damaged and that they're even emitting or they're spilling chemicals. Now, friends, Iran has been retaliating, and even yesterday, Iran retaliated on Haifa and on Tel Aviv. And friends, those videos that are coming out showing the missiles hitting these cities are interesting, very interesting, to the point where many are asking, where is the Iron Dome? Others are saying that the Iron Dome, Israel's Iron Dome, has been malfunctioning. But friends, if you're an African, I want you to ask yourself, especially if you're a Ghanaian, why is Ghana removing its embassy or closing its embassy in Iran, Tehran, Iran? Is it to please Donald Trump, or is it because the Ghanaians are anticipating an all-out war between Israel and Iran and they want to remove or close their embassy in advance? Perhaps that could be the case. However, it seems, as I've said again, that the Trump's recent travel ban, which went into effect on Monday, is one, racist, it is anti-black, anti-African, but it is also a geopolitical play. Now, friends, I want to apologize once again for deviating, but back to the topic of discussion, Chad. So Chad is saying that they are going to reciprocate. If the United States is going to ban or restrict travel from Chad, that Chad is going to restrict or ban travel from the United States. Of course, most Americans are not going to Chad. Chad, like many African countries, is not one of the most prominent travel destinations. However, because of that, I feel that what the Chadians are doing is much more symbolic, but it also goes a long way. Because I do believe the United States is a bully and continuously shows itself to be a bully. And the way to deal with a bully, even if that bully is going to beat you up, do not show fear. The bullies get stronger when you coward. Stand up to the bully, and even if the bully beats you, when you do not run away, it takes away the bully's power. For the United States, especially under Donald Trump, countries and leaders should be willing to insult the United States back when the United States insult them. Because by doing that, the United States will have to learn to be respectful to other countries, stronger or weaker countries. Now, friends, please tell me what you think, and I really want to know what you think. But friends, I am going to end here. I want to thank you for being a member of the Echoing Voice community, my friends. But most especially and most importantly, or important, I want to thank you a lot for watching the Echoing Voice. Peace, my friends. Peace.